is up? My name is Matthew Makak, and this is Room 51, where we talk all things board gaming. And today, this is part one of a three-part series that we're going to be doing for pre-origin. So, welcome on in. We are doing Allyship 101, and I have amazing guests with me. And I'm just going to go around the way I see it on my screen. We got Crystal Dax.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, we got Amanda Panda
Hey, hey.
and Ruel Gaviola.
Hi, friends.
Hey, yeah. So these people are awesome. We're going to talk about like what it means to be an ally, and that's really what this whole segment right here is about. And throughout the series, we're going to just go into like deeper, I guess, conversations as we go on. But this one is just, talking about different terminologies and like what it means really to be an ally for the LGBTQ plus community. So friends, what do you feel is what it means to be like what is allyship for you when you hear allyship? What does that mean for you? And anyone could chime in.
I would say that allyship can take on a number of different meanings, but in broad terms, it means support for a group that you are not a part of. And so when it comes to the LGBTQ community, that would mean if you are outside of that community, you still actively support that community. And that would be how I would generally define it.
Thanks,
Yeah, I just to echo what Crystal said, yeah, for me, that's the key word, support, right? Being there for the community and offering what support you can give at any given moment. Yeah, support.
Yeah, agreed. And it's also, I feel like for me personally, it's also like someone who has like a power and then they are giving that power to lift up someone who does not have that power in our culture, right? So we know there is a certain group that has a majority of the power in our culture. And so when they speak up, people listen more than if the LGBTQ or minority or women speak up. And that is what brings most of the support, right? Is when the people in power speak up, then they are, they are being allies and helping everyone lift everyone up and helping everyone be in the spotlight and grow and stuff like that.
And it's not even so to be an ally, like there's even like allyship is kind of the goal, but at this point where we're at, it's almost like we at times need to take a step back from that and literally just get to the point of acknowledgement, because there are people I obviously all of us, the four of us, live here in the United States, where there are a lot of active issues regarding the LGBTQ community, but there are other places in the world where it is better and far worse as well. But just to acknowledge that the LGBTQ community exists, especially all of the pieces of that community, is kind of the first step, because there are people who are saying that there are parts of that community that don't exist. They do not acknowledge them. And so allyship is basically like the next step. So we need to first get to the acknowledgement step, and then allyship is kind of the goal beyond that.
I love that. Yeah, thanks, Crystal. And something you had said before, right? Because you were talking about allyship, like if you're outside of the community and bringing support into the community, I would go beyond that, where allyship is even within the community itself, because like you were talking about, like not all of the letters in that acronym support one another. So even that, like allyship towards groups that maybe you're not a part of, even though they're part of the community itself.
That's a really good point. There are specific groups within the LGBTQ community who deliberately exclude other members of the community. And that's a big problem, because like there's enough hate directed toward the LGBTQ community from the outside. When we're cannibalizing our own, that's not helping, obviously. So that's a really good point.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, and I know. So Amanda, you were talking a little bit about like certain ways to like support what it actually how to actually support the LGBTQ plus communities. I was wondering like what other folks thought too in terms of what does support actually look like for the community and even within the board gaming hobby itself?
I'll jump in real quick. For me, being an ally and a supporter, the number one thing for me to do, I feel, is listen. I need to listen to the voices within the community, and like truly listen, not just like, oh, okay, I hear you, but how can I act on what I hear? And if that means being an advocate or offering support, or using whatever position I'm in a certain space to you know listen and open up either opportunities, or just again, just a welcome seat at the table. And I think that everything stems from listening. I think a lot of people, um at least in my experience as a person of color, you get accepted, or you people say you're accepted in these certain groups, but they don't actually listen to what you're saying. I think that's the number one thing, and it's something that I try to be, I try to get better at every day. Every situation I'm in is like, I really want to listen to people. So I think that's, for me, I think everything revolves around that, is being able to listen to community and really truly hear what is needed, and then seeing what I can offer at any given point.
Just to
That's a-
go, sorry,
Go ahead, Amanda.
I was just gonna say, just to go with that, is that the first step, right, is to actually get representation, right? Is to give them a seat at the table. Because I mean, right now we are doing better in the United States to give that voice, to give that seat at the table, but still, a lot of times it's not thought of. It's not, part of the checklist of things that needs to happen. And a lot of businesses, even in the board game community, the top tier of CEOs and stuff are not minorities or LGBTQ, and we need to find systems, we need to find ways to give them that voice, to put them in those seats of power, so that they can help educate and help make things a little bit better, and give them that voice that then people who needs to start listening to.
Absolutely. And to kind of piggyback on what Ruel was saying, I think I agree wholeheartedly that listening is a very big piece of the puzzle, and not just listening, but active listening, because performative allyship is something that I think a lot of people practice without maybe even realizing it. And like, that would basically be, you look at face value like an ally, but you don't really do anything to help or benefit the LGBTQ community. So you're not actively harming the community, you're not doing anything bad per se, but you're not really helping either. And I think one of the as we progress forward, one of the things that we should start thinking about is seeing LGBTQ folks not only for their LGBTQ-ness, because that ends up if you think of any human in your life, your mom, your dad, your sister, your best friend, you probably know a lot of things about them: their favorite color, their favorite board game, where they grew up, what they like to do on the weekends, and a bunch of pieces of them. But how much do you know about the LGBTQ people in your life? Do you know more than the fact that they are trans or that they are gay? Like, obviously, if you're very close with someone, you might know more, but I think especially as our online communities grow, we tend to start to put people in buckets where, like, oh, this person is a lesbian, so we should put them on a panel for like gay board gamers or whatever else. And I think conventions are going to struggle with this going forward, and have struggled with this in the past too, where they're trying to create diverse panels and shows and things like that. But it's the whole problem of, like, back when I think women were kind of trying to get a seat at the table, and it was like, if the only panels you're inviting women to are women in board games, that's not okay. That's not like women in board games should not only be invited to a women in board games panel, because then that's not solving the problem. And the same goes for the LGBTQ community.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I completely relate to that. Where a lot of times when June rolled around, June being Pride Month for at least the US, and all of a sudden everybody wanted me on their streams or channels or whatever. Um, and on the one hand, I was like, okay, cool. I'm getting invited to these things, but on the other hand, I felt a certain way. I was like, oh, okay, so all of a sudden you want me there. But yeah, I think that that is part of the problem, that like performative allyship that you were talking about, Crystal, where it's like, okay, but you could actually have me on all year round, at any point. It doesn't have to just be during Pride Month. And not just me, I'm talking about, other people as well. Uh, but yeah, it could be harmful in a way. But I also wanted to say that uh, sometimes, or I think a lot of times when we're talking about allyship within any sphere, so even beyond like LGBTQ plus community, like any kind of community, sometimes we kind of get wrapped up in you know speaking, and we don't quite make it a welcoming space for folks to make mistakes. And I think that's something that's really huge. I think that what we need to do is allow people to feel comfortable enough to ask questions and make mistakes along the way without feeling like they are a bad person, right? Because especially if they're actively trying to like do the right thing and we're just shutting them down, that alienates people. And it does the opposite effect. So I think that's something else just within our community. I say our community, all of our communities, is to allow people to feel welcome at the table as well, like those who are outside of the communities, to feel like, okay, I could be here, I could make a mistake, I could apologize, move on, and learn from that, and not feel like, okay, I am a homophobe or something like that, and feel like I'm a terrible person.
The
And I
key
think that's
though,
Oh, we got something. Say, go ahead, man.
I was just saying the key is to learn from them, right? Because we do have a lot of repeat offenders who just apologize, never learn from it, and think that it's okay. I can still stay here, I can still take up space, but I'm not gonna, I'm actually not gonna learn from it. I'm just gonna keep apologizing. And I think that that is definitely not okay, and that's something that the community can be like, you have done this a couple of times. Can you look into yourself and see if you really want to learn and really want to be a part of this community.
Yeah, and just going along that, I love what Matthew said is, we should have some grace. There should be the ability for people to make mistakes or have that space to make mistakes, but also for communities to forgive. But like Amanda is saying, it's a tricky thing, right? You can forgive, but again, don't forget that, hey, someone's done this for the fourth time. It's like, yo, are going back to this whole performative thing? Are you just saying sorry just because you want to be at this table? And are you truly sorry? Like, what are you doing? What actions are you taking? What steps are you taking to improve yourself, to be part of this community? So yeah, it's not like a simple answer, but I think number one, we should have the ability to forgive, but also number two, we should hold people accountable, right? So you say you're sorry, cool, now let's see what you've done, let's improve on that, and are you truly sorry? And yeah, are you going to be welcome at this table? Are you going to help other people feel welcome at this table?
And one of the, I think, problems that we've run into specifically in board gaming, because the hobby has been growing exponentially over the past couple of decades, is we have new people coming in all the time, which is wonderful. That's not the problem. But, there have been some bad actors who have come up over the years, and occasionally when they try to re-enter spaces, there are people who don't know about past transgressions that maybe they never apologized for. They didn't even try to make amends. And when they try to re-enter spaces, if people don't know that they've done things in the past, they may welcome them with open arms. And you can't blame them for welcoming them because they have no knowledge of what happened before. But then people who do know what happened before are in a very tough spot, because if you call them out, you look like a jerk, basically. You're like, well, why are you, talking bad about this person? That was years ago, or whatever else. But it's like, they have caused harm to this community in the past. And how do you, like, what, maybe they're better now, but maybe they're not. And it's a hard place to be in, where you potentially want to let people know, like, hey, this is a person that you should possibly keep an eye on. There's no way to say that without basically coming off as rude or mean or something. Even if you say it nicely, it offends them, basically. There's no way to do that in a way that people will be like, okay, cool, sounds great. And I will admit, that is something that I've gotten involved in conversations like that in the past. And it inevitably ends up bringing a lot more hate my way, and other people's ways. But I think that is one of the reasons why people who are part of non-minority groups should speak out when and if they feel comfortable doing so. Like, for instance, I am white, therefore people will listen to me more so than they will listen to a person of color in a lot of instances. And that is a sad fact, but it's true. So I choose to use that power to my advantage. And when I can become an online human shield of sorts, when I feel comfortable doing so, I will do that. And I know there are far more people than me who are doing it far more often and in even bigger and better ways. But it's one of those things, like, yes, grace and forgiveness are incredibly important. And we as a community need to learn how to forgive, because we often are not great at that. But we also need to hold people accountable for actions that they refuse to quit doing, basically.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And just
Go ahead. Go ahead, Raul. You
Thanks,
first.
Samantha. Okay, thank you. I was just going to say along those lines as well, just because someone's forgiven someone, that doesn't mean they've been forgiven by the entire community or certain people. So we should respect, the fact that, hey, I may have forgiven someone, but someone else may have not. I have to respect that. It's like, yo, they may be okay here, but they're not okay there. And, just be aware of that and not think that, hey, all is forgiven, all is good. No, things need to continue and conversations need to continue happening. And just because one person says so doesn't mean it goes for everyone, right?
And I wanted to reiterate the point that allyship really is to use the power that you're given by your culture to help shield, to help protect, to help speak up when people do things that are prejudiced or say things that are prejudiced or hateful. And especially when there is not a minority or a LGBTQ person there, when your friend or a stranger says something racist or something, if you're in, a white person who is in a position of power in our culture says, oh, no, that's not right, you shouldn't be saying that, that helps a lot, right? That helps get people thinking again. Okay, maybe I should think about what I'm saying, or you're right, that is, that's something that I shouldn't say out loud, at least, right? So especially in conventions and stuff, when you're just walking around, or the table next door is making some racist joke, you should just say, hey, that's not cool, and then you can just leave it at that, right? And that helps keep people in the mindset of, this is not right, I should not be saying this, especially in this space with a lot of different types of people, where someone can feel alienated, someone can feel like they do not belong or they're not supposed to be here, when that is absolutely not true.
Amanda, you have inspired me, and so I have an idea. We're gonna do a little thought exercise here. And so I'm going to mildly cheapen allyship for just a brief moment, and we're gonna turn active allyship into a rainbow tie-dye t-shirt. Okay, obviously being an ally is not just wearing a rainbow tie-dye t-shirt, but just for a moment we're going to pretend it is. So everybody, I want you to think of a board game convention, maybe one you've attended, maybe one you want to attend, you've seen pictures online, something like that. What if you walked into that board game convention and every single person who was either a part of the LGBTQ community or who supported the LGBTQ community was wearing a rainbow tie-dye t-shirt. How, like, what do you think that space, how different do you think that space would be compared to how it is right now in a normal setting? I think, obviously, a t-shirt, like I said, is not allyship, but if allies were to be a little more open and vocal and were to speak up when they could and can and were felt safe to, obviously we're not asking anybody to put themselves at risk here, but the people who are causing the community harm often do so because they feel empowered to do so. They feel safe to do so. They don't feel like anything bad will come to them if they do so. And if they were surrounded by rainbow tie-dye t-shirts, I bet it would be a lot harder for them to feel comfortable doing those things. So just something to think about, you know?
That would be hilarious. I would love that.
I would love that too. It would also be interesting because it then let's say like at least 70% of the people there are wearing these tie-dye shirts, right? And all of a sudden you're now put in like the minority, and you're feeling that sense of like you know, whatever it might be, like not belonging or kind of fearful, whatever it might be. And it's like, yeah, that's how we feel all of the time. So
The
it kind of
otherness.
that
Yeah.
otherness, yeah, exactly. And that could be like a really good, I think that's a really great like mind exercise. Because then it also brings that listening, but and awareness, but really that understanding of what other people are feeling, and then giving yourself empathy towards others. And I think that's a really important piece too in terms of allyship, is like empathy, compassion, and understanding. And you don't have to understand everything,
Right.
but like trying to understand is huge, I think.
Yeah. And you know, speaking on that, you know, a lot of times when, you know, people, allies, are trying to understand, they will go to their friend who's in the community and ask them a bunch of questions, you know, but that puts a lot of the pressure on your friend to represent a whole community, right? And so it is, to understand, to educate yourself, I would say try a lot of different resources. It is better, it's easier than to just put the pressure on the community or your friend to educate you and teach you right from wrong and make sure, you know, that don't force it on them. Don't make them being the gatekeepers, don't make them being the teachers, you know. Like, go to different, there's a lot of books now, there's a lot of community centers, there's a lot of groups online that you can go and sit and listen, and then you can educate yourself that way. It is hard, you know, like Crystal was saying, when someone, you know, who is a, you know, bad actor and stuff like that comes in, then we can't educate everyone either, you know, like the LG, we can't be there and be like, oh, like this is what it did, here's your receipts, you know, you just can't do that. So it's very important, like everyone's been saying, is to listen, but listen to a lot of different sources, right? Or, you know, don't force other people to teach you everything you need to know.
Yeah, that's true. And you know, that reminds me, it just made me think, Amanda, how, you know, when I meet someone and I feel like they genuinely want to get to know me better, I want them to, you know, I just want them to know that, like, I don't represent every single Filipino person out there. You know, I'm cool hanging out with you. If you're truly down, I mean, you'll find ways to learn. You're not just gonna say, oh, well, I don't know about this about the Philippines, let's go ask Ruel. No, that's not it. There's a thing called the internet that's out there. You can use that, you know. As all the kids do these days, you go to YouTube and learn it there, you know, or whatever. And there's other people within the community you could talk to. I don't mind being that first contact with y'all. That's great. You know, let's sit down, play a game. But if you really want to learn about my community, come on over. Don't just take my word for it. Go talk. Go learn and continue to learn and hopefully be accepted.
Yeah, and
claiming
go ahead.
ignorance in this day and age, it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah,
30 years
totally.
ago, there were less resources available to people, and so likely you potentially only had the people around you to learn from, potentially. And especially when it comes to LGBTQ folks, there were far more closeted people back then, so there were even less that you likely had, like, you didn't know the people around you were LGBTQ. Like for me personally, I did not know that I was bisexual until I was in my 20s. Like, as I was growing up, I did not know that that being bisexual was a thing. I literally had no idea. All I knew was that I was attracted to men, therefore I must just be straight and not gay. And so the fact that I thought people like Scarlett Johansson were hot, I was like, oh, well, all women must just think other women are hot. Oh, wait, no, that's different. That's different, Crystal. So it's interesting because the LGBTQ community, as the understanding of the community and the acceptance of the community has grown. Like, there are people who use the argument that that the community is indoctrinating people, and that is absolutely not the case. That is 100% completely inaccurate. There are just a lot of people who previously did not feel comfortable living their true lives, or did not actually themselves recognize their true selves because they didn't have the ability to. So I highly urge people to go online. There are tons of really, really amazing resources. I would say the Human Rights Campaign Foundation is a really, really good website to go to. They actually have a full report on how to be an LGBTQ plus ally, with a lot of really good information on their website. So if you're looking for stuff like that specifically, go take a look. It wouldn't hurt. And even if you already feel like you know how to be an ally, maybe you'll learn something new and you can spread that information to others.
Yeah, that's awesome, Crystal. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And we will have links down below in the description for resources that you could utilize and check out. And Crystal, you were mentioning a lot of like different language, and I think language within the LGBTQ plus community is a huge barrier, and it can make it difficult or potentially scary to like enter, and it's like I have no idea what people are talking about. I'd actually like to talk about some of those like vocabulary words, I guess, that are used in the queer community. And if you would mind, what does it mean to be bisexual?
Well, so this is an interesting one because bisexuality there's been a little bit of drama about it over the past, I would say, I'm guessing like maybe decade or so, because it previously, I think, was more recognized to be you are attracted to both men and women. And that was kind of how it was defined for a while. And some people still define it that way. But I should say, first off, every person identifies themselves how they identify themselves, and they use the terms that they want to use to however they want to use them. So when someone self-identifies themselves to you, you should, if you would like clarification, you should ask them what that means for them. For me, in particular, bisexuality, I am attracted to people of all genders. And so there is another term within the LGBTQ community called pansexual, which specifically means attracted to all genders. So you may ask, why do I use the term bisexual instead of pansexual? And honestly, it's kind of just because of when I was raised. The term pansexual really had not come into prevalence or heavy usage when I was discovering who I was. And so I adopted the term bisexual, and it felt like a good term for me, and I haven't felt the need to switch. So there are some people who will use that term a little bit differently, but in a lot of cases, bisexual and pansexual can mean the same thing, but they don't always.
Can I jump in here real quick? I just wanted to say that there's like 3 types of sexuality. There's the physical, biological sexuality that your doctor needs to know, because there's certain diseases that might affect, or certain, diagnosis that affect by what you actually have in your physical body. There's also, the physical sexuality, where who you love, that type of thing that Crystal was talking about. But there's also the self-identification sexuality, like I identify myself as, this gender, or that gender, or I don't identify myself as any gender, that type of thing. So when you're talking about these types of things, just keep those in mind, that, that some people might be talking about it from this physical love angle, and then some people might be talking about it from their self-identification angle. And just be aware of that, and keep that in mind. If I just wanted to put that out there.
There's basically a lot of nuance.
There is a lot of nuance. And just for a little bit of clarification, Amanda, as to what you're talking about, in terms of biology, we'll call that like your sex, which is, your sex characteristics, your biological characteristics. And then sexuality, it could be like who you're sexually attracted to, and then there's the romantic attraction. So it's like, who do I want? So romantic attraction is like, do I want to have like an actual relationship with this person, like caring relationship, versus sexual relationships. So you could be like bisexual but homo-romantic. So just to like put that into perspective.
Well, and I'll even tack on a teeny bit more for people who are not aware. When it comes to biologic sex, like your biological sex, it is not binary. It is not just male and female at a biological level. Like when we were growing up, everybody was taught the whole XX chromosome, XY chromosome thing. And unfortunately, that kind of got stuck in a lot of people's heads as, oh, okay, it's one or the other. But if you do a little bit of research on the internet, you will learn that that's not always the case. Humans are very, very complex creatures, and the chromosomes don't always work exactly that way. And so there are people who have chromosomal differences in their biological sex. So when people say gender is a spectrum, it is not just a catchy phrase, it is an actual fact.
Yes. Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah. One of the letters, because I tend to say LGBTQ plus, but there's like LGBTQIA plus, and I standing for like intersex. And intersex are folks who, they have a combined chromosomes or hormones, whatever it might be, that take from male and female sex biologically. And a lot of people will even like go their whole lives intersex and not even know it, because I don't know about y'all, but I never got my chromosomes checked. Like I haven't gotten that test done. So there is that. And even along that spectrum, like not every female biologically looks the same. And same for males, and then it just kind of like swings back and forth, which then goes into also sexuality and gender. So it's really cool. I like to think about it as colors, right? Like how many colors are there? I don't know, a lot. And they all blend together, and like some red colors look different and everything. It's so I don't know. It's pretty cool to not limit yourself to the binary, being your authentic self, and stepping away from like what you're supposed to be, and just being whoever it is that you are, without society telling you how you're supposed to act, how you're supposed to behave, what you're supposed to look like, and all these things.
And as an ally, you might be confused about all this. It's very simple. Just, when you get to know people, you can just ask them, what are your pronouns? And just leave it at that, and just let them tell you what they are comfortable telling you as your relationship grows, and respect their choices, and what they decide to do, how they decide to look, and that type of stuff. So as an ally, don't force people to tell you, their sexuality or, all that information. That's very, very personal information. But what you can do as the first step to letting people know you are an ally is, oh, I'm Amanda. My pronouns are she, her. Which gives them the opening to tell you their pronouns. Also, when you don't know their pronouns, just use they, them. It is the generic form, right? And then they can correct you or not.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it really all ties back to that, what we talked about earlier. Respect, respect people's choices and what pronouns they want to use. And as Amanda was saying, if you don't know, it's okay not to know. Ask if you're comfortable, and if they're comfortable sharing, that's fine. But again, just be respectful.
And another important point, and this kind of goes back to the whole forgiveness thing, everyone makes mistakes. Everyone, myself included. I have misgendered people accidentally in the past. I have known a person's pronouns and gotten it wrong. We have all grown up in a society that teaches us what men and women theoretically should look like, right? We've spent a lot of years being conditioned. And so therefore our brains are fallible. And when you make a mistake, you don't want to compound that mistake by making a big deal about it. Like, if you accidentally misgender someone, you don't want to cause a scene. You don't want to be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Because now you're drawing even more attention to the situation and putting them in a very awkward spot, because now they are essentially forced to console you. Yes. For they are now you're the one that's in distress, and they are forced to forgive you, which for the record, they never have to forgive you for something like that. But in almost every instance, if you misgender someone, generally all you need to do is so if I was speaking to Matthew, for instance, and I accidentally misgendered him, I would just say, oh, sorry, and then I would just go on with whatever I was saying, because again, we are human, we are fallible, we all make mistakes. Just self-correct and move on. And then if you want to have a private conversation with them later, where if you want to make a little bit more of an apology, especially if it's someone you know well, like, hey, I just wanted to let you know I was really sorry about that, I'm working on it. That's kind of, obviously up to you, your discretion based on your relationship with the person at hand. But don't make a big scene about it, because that is going to put that person in a more awkward situation than they're already in.
Yeah, that right there, Crystal. Yeah, totally. Again, think about what happened, and don't make a big thing about it. I'm thinking it was, for me personally, specifically. So when I started getting into board game content years ago, I was invited to do a video shoot for a certain game, and one of the people there I had misgendered while we were doing the video shoot, which was horrifying to me, because we had to literally stop the scene, reshoot it. Oh, Ruel, you misgendered so and so. I was like, my gosh, and I felt so bad. But we we redid the take, and then afterwards, I wasn't sure, should I, what do I do? And I didn't want to put the burden on them. And I quickly apologized and just moved on. And thankfully, again, they showed me grace, this person who had misgendered, and we ended up working together several times in the future, thankfully, because of their grace and their forgiveness for me. And it taught me something, like I need to be better about that. And I learned, hopefully, I've continued to get better with that over the years. I would like to think I did, but again, it's on me. It's not on them. It's on me to learn the lesson and correct and move on.
Thank you, Roel. Thank you for sharing that story. And I mean, it's even I am trans, and I'll misgender people by accident. And but I'll even do it to those who are not trans, right? Like I'll call
Mhm.
my brother she by accident, and it's like he, whatever, and you kind of just like move on. It's the same kind of concept, really. If we could actually get to that point, that would be amazing. Where it's not so othered, like
Right.
oh trans, oh my god, I misgendered them, and it's just like I misgendered them literally by accident. So that would be really, really cool.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, since we are in this like language and allyship thing here, I was wondering if anybody has any questions in terms of like maybe you've heard a word that you don't know about, or you want to know more about, more clarification, or anything like that. Um, I only ask because I've studied a lot of of this stuff, and so I might actually be able to answer some questions. But uh, and if I don't, we could have a conversation. But I'm curious if anybody has any sort of questions or terms that you would love for more people to know about that maybe it's not as well known.
Actually, can I just back up just 1 second, just to
Yes.
continue this thing about misgendering? It just a funny thought just thought it came in my head. Like my mom has been misgendering people her whole life, and that's because English is her second language, and in
Mm.
Tagalog, her native language, there is no such thing as he, him, she, her, and there's no equivalent. So she's always misgendering people. She'd say she, he, or whatever. So shout out to my mom for being so far ahead of the game back in the day. But seriously though, you think about that, languages are different. We are obviously all English speakers, and there are certain pronouns and whatnot. But with other non-English language, there might not be an equivalent to that. So again, just something to think about.
That's quite
Absolutely.
true. Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, maybe it would be valuable for us to go through the entire LGBTQAI acronym and just identify what all of those letters mean. Especially, I know the A sometimes gets misidentified. Some people think it's ally, and it's not, for instance. So maybe we should go through all of those letters.
I think that's a really good idea. Yeah.
Nice.
Cool. Would you like to do the honors, Crystal, or?
No, you feel free. I did.
Feel free. Yeah, no, okay,
Yeah.
So LGBT, so the L stands for lesbian, G for gay, B for bisexual, T for transgender. Sometimes you'll see trans with an asterisk, because it could mean so many different things. Like transsexual, transgender, so on and so forth, and including non-binary folks as well. Which some people don't view non-binary folks as transgender, and others do, so it gets murky with that. But and I will say, at one point, it was GLB, and then as part of the women's movement, it became LGB, and then trans were like, hey, we're here too. And actually we've been fighting for your rights too. So LGBT, and then it kind of just like alphabet soup. But anyway, so trans, and then Q is usually used for like questioning and or queer. And you have to be careful with queer because I'm curious, does anybody here know what queer actually means as a word? Like the actual definition.
I feel like I should know. I do know that it meant strange at one point.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Weird or strange. Yeah.
And it was considered a slur
Yes.
against people in the community at one point. And so, yeah, I think what you're probably leading toward is there are people, especially older people in the community, who still consider it to be a slur. But there has been movement, especially in the younger members of the community, to basically reclaim that term, and say, no, we are queer and that is okay. But yes, it has been used as a slur in the past, so you do want to be careful about using that as a broad term. But around people who are comfortable with it, it is often kind of a nice blanket term that can be all encompassing.
And
Yeah.
if you have one friend that's comfortable with it, don't assume everybody else is going to be comfortable with it. Don't use them as the example.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, and part of the reclaiming is like, yeah. So what? I'm weird. You know,
I
like,
mean, we all
you know,
are. Like
we all
outside
are.
of the
Yeah.
community, inside the community.
Yeah.
Oh
Like
yeah.
Yeah.
we're in the board game community, y'all.
I was
We're
just
all
gonna
a
say,
little
yeah.
bit
Yeah.
quirky, right? Like
Yeah.
We're all a bit queer, okay? But yes. That's awesome. And then if we go further, so I stands for intersex, which we were talking about a little bit earlier. By the way, if I miss anything, please let me know. And
so
then
far, you're doing great.
we have A, which stands for asexual or aromantic. And for those who might not know, that just means so asexual meaning like you are not necessarily like sexually attracted to folks, or the way you might interact with sex looks much different, where it's not very sexual for a lot of people, or the way might a lot of people might see uh it to be. And then there's a whole thing with that, like demisexual and all that. But since this is 101, we won't get into all that. But just know that asexuality is a thing, and then aromantic, where maybe you're not really looking for like a lifelong partner or relationships with people, and that's not something that you feel like you have like a gravitational force towards, or anything like that. Um, I think A also stands sometimes for androgynous. And then yeah, and then there's a bunch more letters that honestly I don't even know. But some people even use different acronyms. Like some people will say like LGBTQQIAA, plus. I like just saying Q and then like saying plus after that, because I feel like queer is this all-encompassing term. But that's just me. Some people might be really offended by that.
Yeah, I think that it like that kind of has become in recent years the shortest blanket acronym, right, is LGBTQ plus, and that is not dismissive of intersex and aromantic or asexual people at all, but we also recognize the longer an acronym gets, the harder it will be for people to use it or use it accurately. So basically, just if you if you use any acronym, LGBT, definitely like make sure you get all of those letters in there if nothing else. But tacking that little Q and the plus on the end, that's
Yeah.
the whipped cream and cherry on top if you can do it.
I think it's important too as allies, look at the evolution of the community and all the different acronyms, and again, be respectful of what the community wants to use. And it's like, oh, okay, don't just go, well, yesterday y'all had Q, today you don't. No, it doesn't matter what, as an ally, what you think. Like, respect what the community is doing and using, and work with them, and try to, again, be respectful, and be a good ally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not just these like words, right? These acronyms. It's also the symbolism, right? You can wear a flag and not be part of the community. You can wear rainbows and not be a part of the community. Rainbows are loved by a lot of people, especially like children, right? But if you do, wear a rainbow and stuff like that, please, just be aware that uh, you know, you might be known as an ally. So be an ally, especially when you're wearing these symbols. There are now these lovely pins that has all the different, the different pride flags and stuff like that. And don't just wear it during June. You can buy most of your products from all the companies during June, but it might be better, instead of getting it from these big box stores that are only selling it during June, to get it from LGBTQ creators and shop owners, and supporting them that way. You don't have to technically wear all this symbolism, but if you want to support them, maybe check out who is the owner of the store. Go look for these, especially on Etsy, on
Yep.
Shopify. Look for these creators. You can support them by ordering their merch and stuff like that.
I love that. Yes, thank you, Amanda. And thank you to all of you. I think that just one of the biggest things, I think, in terms of allyship is that it helps everyone. Because you know, especially when we think about like USA, right? We're like, you know, we're trying to, you know, search for freedom, right? Freedom is like the biggest thing. But meanwhile, you know, we have these systems in place that put us into cages, and then we are the ones who continue to keep locking ourselves in those cages because we don't we subscribe then to this binary thinking of like, okay, men should be like this, women should be like this, and sexuality should be like this. And it doesn't allow for you to express all of you. And you're denying yourself your own freedom by denying yourself your authenticity. Um, and oftentimes we start to fight each other, us little folks fighting each other, when really it's the system at large that, you know, it's almost like the Matrix, right? Where like you know, we can't break out of the Matrix because we are subscribing to it. We become the perpetrators of our own oppression, and
Yeah.
that is the problem. So
There's a line from the Hunger Games. Remember who the true enemy is.
oh yeah.
Yep.
That's a weird. I recently rewatched this movie, so it was in my head. But
I love this.
I think it's important because silence and complacency are kind of the easy way for a lot of people to go, right? Like if you're not, especially if you're not part of the community and the things going on around you don't directly affect you, it is easy to kind of just sit back and not say anything and not do anything. But that is how hateful laws get passed, because hateful people believe that their opinions are what the majority wants because the people who don't believe in those things aren't speaking up. So what I would suggest is, if you all watching this can look up the your state, and especially regarding the trans community, but the LGBTQ community at large, look up what bills are being proposed and what have potentially already been passed in your state, and contact your representatives at all levels of government, from local all the way up to federal, and send them an email, write them a letter. There are a lot of resources online that will basically do it for you. Like you can literally just like click a thing, drop down, it'll bring up your representative, it'll fill in a form, and you can basically, like, with very little effort, you can send a note to a representative that says, hey, I'm not okay with this thing that you're doing, or I do not support that. And it really doesn't take a lot of work, but I think many people don't know that those resources are out there. So especially if you live in a state that is actively trying to harm the LGBTQ community, and you have the ability to do just a little bit, please do, because it makes a big difference. It doesn't feel like it will, but it really does. Like our lawmakers, if they get enough messages from people, like that can cause real change.
Yeah, and if you think, oh, this doesn't really matter, or it won't affect me at all, like especially all those bills against trans rights, and no, those bills very easily translates into, you know, going against bodily rights for females or women, right? And it's one step away from you. Okay, you think, oh, it's not going to affect me. No, it's that first step to then taking your rights, and then we start getting into the whole, you know, dystopia of we no longer have control of our bodies or rights over our own choices of what's going on inside our own bodies. So please, you know, do, you know, step out. If you're truly your ally, speak up, and do as Crystal says, just do that one little thing, you know, send an email, you know, go, you know, send a I don't know, people do physical mail anymore, but write a message.
Pick up the phone, right? Leave a voicemail, right? They all have phone numbers where you can leave voicemails or text. Yeah.
Yeah. And those are the first steps, right, to helping everybody keep their own rights.
Yeah. You know, we still have that power to vote, right? That's still the most powerful thing we have in, at least in American society. So, I mean, I have my local, my representative. I know their number. I am on their email list. I have easily just emailed my local rep and say, hey, here's what I think about this, and that, or if there's bills that are going to affect people negatively. I mean, speak up and use your vote, folks. I mean, yes, go on social media, talk about it, whatever, but also vote. It really is important, and that's how to be not only a good ally, but an advocate. And you're advocating for people's rights here. I mean, and these days it's a matter of life and death, folks. I mean, so go out there and vote.
Yes,
Yeah.
and when you speak up, it will empower someone else to speak up. And then them speaking up will empower someone else and someone else. And the more people that do it, the more people that will feel comfortable doing it. And it will cascade in the most beautiful of ways. So I know it's hard when it's not a lot of people doing it. It's hard to be one of those voices. But the chorus is coming, y'all. You just gotta, I know you don't want to be a solo singer. I know you're a little scared, but just get your voice out there. I promise the chorus is coming.
And with that, Crystal will sing us a song. No,
Yes.
All right. Awesome. Thank you all so much for being here and having this conversation and asking questions and just talking about this stuff. It's really important. And where can people find you? We'll start again, the way I see it on the screen. Crystal, where can people find you on wherever you are?
You can find me in a number of different places. I am on most of the social media platforms as @CrystalDax. Instagram, you got to tack a 17 at the end of that, CrystalDax17. And then I'm also on Twitch, streaming every Tuesday at twitch.tv/BoardGameBlitz. And then you can also find me on the Board Game Blitz podcast every 2 weeks. We just had our 7-year anniversary, which me and my co-host Ambi are very, very proud of. And we actually just recorded an episode last night, which will probably have already released by the time this video comes out. And it was a really good conversation. I'm really proud of the work we do on our podcast. And so if you haven't checked it out, I would highly recommend it. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts, all of their usual places.
Awesome. Thank you, Crystal. And Amanda, where can people find you?
If you just search in your favorite social media, Panda Angel, that's PANDA, the number 8, NGEL, you should be able to find me. I have multiple accounts everywhere, but I'm primarily a board game Twitch streamer. I stream on my own channel on Tuesdays in the evenings, Thursdays at noon, Fridays at noon, and then Sundays at 11 a.m. Pacific. I also stream for the Tabletop Gamers Twitch channel, so you'll find me pop up there streaming some Steam games most of the time because it's the easiest to get to. I also am a part of Our Family Plays Games Voices, so I'll do segments for their YouTube channel, so you can find me there as well. And all of us are a part of Tabletop Live Network, which is a awesome community, and we do monthly marathons, which I'll let Ruel tell you more about.
Yes. Thanks, Amanda. Ruel, yeah, please tell us.
Tabletop Live Network, again, it's comprised of a lot of great individual channels from around the world, including all the fine folks here on this video. But so you can find me there. You can find me all over at Ruel Gaviola, RuelGaviola, on all the socials, different channels and whatnot. And I love board games, and I love being an ally to the community. And I want to thank you, Matthew, for having me on here today.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. And remember, supporting any of these lovely folks here, you are being an ally in some sort of way. Okay, like actively watching and interacting with their channels is being an ally, and just being awesome too, because they make great content, so watch it. And anyway, so that is it for this segment of Allyship 101, and we will catch you in the next episode. Thank you all again for being here. Okay, we're doing hearts. Yes. Oh, yeah.
And follow Matthew, follow Room 51.
Yes.
Room 51 Live. You can find him also on some Dice Tower segments as well. So don't forget to follow Matthew, our wonderful host, Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Amanda. Thank you for that shout out on my own video that I forgot to do that. So thank you, everybody. We will catch you next time. Bye.
Bye.